I'm ready. I got my logo pointed right at the camera. It's marketing 101. Cheers.
Here we go.
All right, let's do it. Can't drink in the mic.
Okay, so we are live with Jordan today. We tried this a couple weeks ago when I got this set up, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I thought I had it down, and one of these instruments here didn't really work very well, so now we got it down.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make this happen today. Cool. So Jordan is a coach for Envision. Jordan started coaching with me when we opened Envision. I met him through Instagram.
Yep.
Slid in his DMs.
Yep.
And that's where it all started. How did that start? Actually, I think you remember the story a lot better.
I went back and found the old DMs. I think now they're deleted because it was an old Instagram page of yours. But it was back when I was just posting. I had a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. So every Monday was a motivational post. It was Monday motivation, right? Me shirtless and then some quote. And then there was Wednesday recipes. And then there was Friday like training footage, or sometimes it was like an educational video. Like I showed people how to calculate macros or whatever. And I was really, really consistent on that. And I remember you reaching out to me and saying something like, hey, you're starting to leave your mark or something like that, and I'm seeing you a lot more on my page. Keep it up. So that was the first time I heard from you, and this is back when you're like, 220 pounds or whatever, posting all your photos. So I was like, oh, shit, this guy's messaging me. And so that was cool. And then, I remember you kind of would check in on me on time to times and leave a nice message or something like that. And then one time you said if I could give you my number because you had something to ask me or something like that. And I had no fucking clue what you were going to say. Oh, I don't know if I can cuss. Sorry. Okay, I can.
You're good.
Sweet. And then, and then so I sent you my number and you called me and mentioned that you're going to open up a gym and that you wanted me to help you open it. And this is around the time of, it was like October or something like that. And I had just gotten my CPT and I was training on Zoom and I hated it. And so I was super excited to go in person. So it was like I remember exactly where I was, and I remember the moment. I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And then next month you sent me a picture of a key in the empty room, and then I came when you guys were rolling down the mats.
Yeah.
And then the rest is history.
Yeah, that was a good time. We did get a bunch of workouts in.
We did do some garage workouts.
Right before early. Was it Saturdays?
It was Saturday at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
One time I went and you weren't there. And I was like, all right.
I slept in.
Yeah, it was all right. I ended up working out.
That's funny.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was a good time. And so you were going to school what are you studying?
Exercise science.
I don't want to say, because there's exercise science and there's kinesiology.
It is kinesiology with a focus in exercise science, yeah.
Everybody calls it something different. But so you're going to school now, and when's your degree over?
I get my degree next spring, so I have 2 more semesters, and that's a wrap. And I'm actually next semester done with anything related to exercise science. It's all just general education credits after that. So I'm going to be taking like movie classes and stuff like that. I want to take some psychology stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't taken any psychology stuff, so
that would be very useful, especially with everything that we're experiencing now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen a lot of coaches who get their degree and then go into coaching.
Mm-hmm.
For you, it was slightly different. And I remember telling you, right, I don't really care about the education that you have, because you're going to learn a lot on the field, right?
Yeah.
Because I've seen different coaches in the past where they come in with their degree and they're so proud and they're like, I got my degree. But then you throw them out on the field and they can't speak to a person. Yeah. And that's something that they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you when that first customer that's never moved and you get them to try to do a squat and you just look at that and you're like, what is that? Yeah. Right? How do I fix that? And so for you is slightly different. You started in the field as you were going to school, and how big of a difference did that make for you?
I actually just submitted one of my summer courses. They asked a question similar to this. It's like an outdated summer course. I don't know why the question was about the shutdown in 2020, and they asked, how did this affect your thoughts of what you were going to do in kinesiology or what you're currently doing. And it was so crazy because I actually had a very good answer for that, and I wouldn't imagine that I did. And, I got my CPT because of the shutdown. I was like, I got all this free time, let's do it. And I knocked it out in 2 months. And, the health and fitness field is very unique in the sense that it's one of those things where you really don't need a degree to start, right? Or to be good or to be helpful. Like it's some common sense and then some like just genuine care for people and ability to speak and fix things. And there's a lot of certifications that you can do, which is what I did to be able to coach through NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine. I got my CPT through there. And it was really cool because we got to start working and I got to kind of test the waters of this one emphasis of kinesiology, because kinesiology branches out. There's stuff like worksite health promotion where you go to like a company like Driscoll's and provide this like walking challenge or something like that, right, to increase health within the community. But it's not hands-on. You're not in person for the most part with these people. And so I got to see what personal training is really like, and it really solidified that this is what I want to do and this is what I love. And that made school so much more engaging, because prior to that, when I first went to school, I was a child development major or something like that. And that was just so I could get into San Francisco State. I didn't want to do that. I was just like, okay, this is the only degree available, so sure. So I had no clue what I was going to do. And, just getting my CPT, I was like, this is it. Because I don't know if I've talked about this, but I'd have in classes for sure. The only thing I would ever get in trouble for, I was a 4.0 student. I never was in the principal's office for anything, never did drugs until my senior year. Never did anything remotely bad. Only thing every year since I was like 5 years old to 17 is every teacher would tell my parents or my mom, Jordan does not stop talking. It doesn't matter where I put him, especially when you have like parent-teacher conferences when you're a kid. That was every year the feedback was, he's great, does his work, all that, won't stop talking. I put him in a table by himself, and somehow he's talking to somebody at another table. Or I put him with the most quiet kid, and then before I know it, the quiet kid won't be quiet with Jordan. So getting here and just, like, this is all I do is I speak with people all day. And on top of that, you stack it with another thing that I love to do, which is exercise and help people exercise and lose weight or gain muscle or whatever it is. It's just, it's literally all the things I love to do in one.
Yeah. The talking hasn't stopped.
No, as you can tell.
It continues.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's a great quality to have, right? And one of the things I always talk about kids, right, it's the school system puts them in a place where it's like you're a bad student because you can't stay still, right? And if those teachers could help you explore different areas, right? Obviously, thankfully you ran into something that you fit right into it, right, and you were able to use that, right? And so a quality that before would be looked at as a problem. Now it's one of your most useful qualities that you have in the field that you're in, and that's what's made you such a successful coach as well. But so let's talk about exercise, because you talked about, me and you and I have had conversations about how before you were not the fittest, right? And you grew up with a father who was a bodybuilder, right? And what was that experience like for you? Because this is a topic that continues to come up as I've gotten to know you. And I think it was a conversation that when I first met you, it was difficult for you to have. And I think over the years, you've gotten a lot better to share your story. And I think it's great for everybody to know a little more of how you got into exercise.
Okay. Yeah, so I personally didn't start working out until I was 18. Like, before that, I was in sports all my life. I loved basketball. I loved football. My biggest regret is not playing high school football. I played basketball for years. But anyways, I never was in a weight room, nor did I want to, because I really resented that, because that kind of embodied what my dad was. So my dad was a personal trainer, and my dad was a bodybuilder, and I grew up going to shows, and we had like these medals all over the house, the trophies that you get. And he actually got fairly popular. He was on radio shows. He went to LA. That's when he really I was like 5 years old, and he started going to Los Angeles to prep people for like music videos or TV shows. And he prepped Jason Statham, for those of you who know who that is, the guy from Fast and Furious, the bald British dude. He prepped Lloyd. He's a singer. Just people from LA. And so that was great, and he came home and would have all this money and stuff like that. But he also came home with hard drug addictions. So, I mean, I've seen cocaine. I'm not I remember seeing needles in the house. So he was also doing steroids. So I don't know, what exactly it was, but a lot of substance abuse. And he was just a very addictive personality and a very aggressive, obviously. So yeah, that kind of connotated with fitness. Like those are the only two things I remember of my dad, is all this aggression and then, being jacked. And I was like, well, I don't want to be either of those things. But yeah, then the way I got into it was I was going to go to Hawaii with my family for the first time. And, I've always had like broad shoulders, and I've always been able to hide. And I feel like that's a quality that has still remained, because even when I post like my transformations from peak bulk to, being shredded again, people are like, oh my God, I had no clue you looked like that under there. And I was like, Dad, I hide it well. So gift and a curse. But anyways, I didn't want to hide anymore. I wanted to be comfortable in my own skin. And that was something that I had never felt before. So I was working at Gold's Gym at the time, ironically. And a guy came in, and gave me his business card. It was conveniently like 14 weeks before my vacation. So I told him I wanted to get abs for the first time and be comfortable on the beach. And yeah, I mean, he got me there. It wasn't the most delightful experience, right? It was rapid weight loss, and so it was a very harsh deficit. I was doing like an hour and a half of cardio at the end of it. But I had never dedicated myself to something like that in my entire life. I had never gone all in like that. I don't know what switched. I guess it was just the motivator to change my body. But that's where the real interest and desire to delve deeper into fitness came from, because I could not believe how my body changed in 12 weeks. And I have old Snapchat videos. I used to do like these little diaries on Snapchat. I'll post them sometimes. They're really embarrassing, but I would just talk to a camera, basically vlogging. And so many of those videos, I'm saying stuff like, I can't believe how different I looked, and this is just the beginning, and just wait for 4 years from now. And it's crazy because now we're 4 years from that. And they're really cool to look back at. But yeah, I'm not a dependent person. And so after that 12 weeks, it was great, and I was extremely grateful. But I was like, okay, how can I figure out how to do this for myself? Because I don't want this to end, but I also don't want to constantly have to ask somebody else to do this for me. I want to be able to do it for myself. And so that's when I realized kinesiology was going to be the way to go. And that had always kind of put me off, because obviously now I'm following in the same footsteps as my dad. But I had to kind of put that aside and be like, okay, I'm also passionate about this, so I just got to be okay with not falling far from the tree in that aspect, and going forward with it, because I think that's one thing I've always tried to avoid, is being any resemblance of my father. Always try to avoid that by any means. And that's like the biggest thing that would upset me, is when my mom would say, oh, you know what, you're doing something that, like, this is what your dad would do. If she wanted me to stop something, that is all she had to say, and I would, like, A, not talk to her for like 2 days, but B, immediately stop that activity. So this was the one caveat to that. And yeah, so I started to educate myself on the topic. I would watch YouTube videos for hours and hours about all these different fitness topics. Then I got my NASM certification. Then I got another one, and then I started going to kinesiology classes in college, and that's where we find ourselves now.
Yeah. So. It's very interesting how you followed your footsteps even though you didn't want to. But
down to the bodybuilding show now.
Right. I was going to say, now you're doing a bodybuilding show. But then again, it's another opportunity for you to do it the right way, right? And we've had your mom in the classes, and obviously she's very proud of you. I know that she's trying to get into the bodybuilding competitions as well, right? And so you're an inspiration to your mom, and I think, obviously she's the one that went through a lot of the pain too with you. but seeing you grow now, and seeing how different you are, and how you've learned from those experiences, those very painful experiences. I speak to her quite a bit when she comes in all the time, and it's cool to see how proud she is of you, and you're gonna do great, right? You have a good head on your shoulders. Every time we speak, that is the number one. It's always at the front, right? I want to make sure that I'm not that aggressive person. I want to make sure that I don't get into the drugs. I want to make sure that I treat my partner the right way.
Yeah.
And so, I talk a lot about, I had this conversation with Caesar the other day about how our dads, right, they did the best that they could. Obviously, sometimes things get out of control, but it's our job to make it better. And if we continue this, our next generation needs to just continue to better. Somewhere along the way, we're probably going to screw it up, right? And that's just part of it. But as long as the next generation's always trying to improve, we as humans are continuing to grow. Right. And we must learn from our past experiences. Now you're getting into bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. How's that?
Well, so bodybuilding is where I, started, because that's what all I had known prior. So I immediately went into that form of training. I went in with that mindset. After my first time dieting and all that, when I got my abs, that was around the time Christian Guzman, the Alpha Elite guy, was doing Summer Shredding 2018. So I was watching those videos every single day, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to compete. And I kind of felt that same way for about 2 more years, and then it just got dry. That's one thing is, you've seen this in me. I get super into so many things, and then I go 110% into it, and then I burn out from it. So that kind of happened with bodybuilding, and then it happened with kettlebells, and I got really into kettlebells, and then it happened with like CrossFit for like 3 weeks, and all these things. But bodybuilding has been a couple years since I did that like really emphasized form of training or dieted to this degree, and it's been enjoyable to get back to it. I've never been in this type of shape before, so that is really cool to see, and also how it gets easier and harder at the same time over the years. But in terms of like losing weight, I remember the first time I lost 20 pounds. I mean, again, like I was talking about, at the end of those 12 weeks, I was doing an hour and a half of cardio, eating like 1,500 calories, just doing absolutely everything. And sure, I had a little bit of abs at the end of it, but I just looked very weak and frail, and because I couldn't sleep, and everything was all messed up, right? But I had never built that foundation. That's what I always preach with people, is build the foundation, because now 5 years later, all I do is walk. I get my steps, and I've been able to lose 40 pounds thus far. It's officially 40 today, by the way.
Did you? Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And that's been in the last 4 or 5 months. But my point is, it gets leisurely, and once you adapt and incorporate health and wellness into your lifestyle, it only gets easier from there. So it's been a lot more enjoyable than it was the first time around. And I'm excited. It's so crazy how many people are like asking where the show is at, and where they can get tickets.
I think you're gonna have a big crowd.
Yeah.
Gio's in it as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, we're both there, so we're both bringing people, to support both of us.
Are both of you in the same class?
So the true novice is 5'7" to 5'11". So yes, we will be in the same one.
Oh.
I'm gonna do 2 classes. So true novice is for anybody's first show. So if it's your first time competing, you are eligible. As soon as it's your second time, you're not eligible. The second one that I'm going to sign up for is just novice, and then there's class A, B, C, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're a novice, it just means that you haven't won a show yet. So you could be up against somebody who's gone to 13 shows and lost every single one. So experience isn't really a thing at that point. It's just you haven't won one. And so, yeah, I'll be in both of those. And for that second one, I won't be with Gio because it's a height differential. So
what's the height?
It's like 5'9", 5'10", 5'10" to 5'11".
What's your height?
5'9". 5'11" if I wear my Air Maxes.
Yeah, I think he's 5'10". I think both of you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Cool. Because I measured him the other day.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna bend my knees a little bit.
He was also saying like he was 5'11" or something like that. Gio.
You can always subtract 2 inches.
It was a lie.
That's the height. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's funny because, as you know, sometimes I get hyper emotional. So I'm like imagining hearing everybody clapping when I'm on there and just fucking breaking down and crying in the middle of posing. I don't want that to happen. I can see it happening.
It's scary. It's scary going up there.
Yeah, no, but like from support. Like I think
Yeah.
I think, and you've seen this. I'm not shy of spotlight, and I really immerse myself in it. I enjoy it. But I think that would just be such like an intense moment, just the kindness of everybody actually deciding to show up like on their Saturday when they could be literally anywhere else.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a small crowd so that doesn't happen.
But I think it's going to be a big crowd, and obviously you have dedicated your last 2.5 years to these people, and obviously Envision is a place where we take care of each other, and we have built a strong community, and it's going beyond the gym. Right now we're starting to build these relationships with our customers where it goes outside of the gym. We go to the park, we go to the beach, we go on trips with certain groups of people. So it's been awesome to find a group of people in our small town that we can surround ourselves by and encourage each other to continue growing. And I think for me in particular, and obviously for my son Luca, having that type of people around is amazing, right? For me, it was very difficult to come back into this town for the specific reason that when I grew up around here, I just felt like it was always so negative everywhere. And it was this one place where everybody's trying to one-up each other, and it was like I remember when the Escalades came out. It was like my neighbor got an Escalade, then the next person gets the Escalade, then the next person puts
spinners on
it, and it was just like, how much bigger can we go? And now one of the things that I've seen or that I've tried to build at Envision is just support, right? It's not being jealous of the other person winning, but being happy for them, which is actually quite hard for a lot of people, right? Seeing other people win, it's like we want to see them win, but we don't want them to do better than us.
Right. I think that's somewhat of a natural response, but then it's part of the individual to like recognize it and also recognize that somebody else's success isn't inhibiting yours. But I mean, like I can even say personally, like when someone else does something well, I'm like, oh, that's great, but fuck, why wasn't it me? Like I want to fucking do it.
Yeah.
But that's where you channel that and you celebrate that person, and then if that's something that you want to achieve as well, then sure, go after it. But as long as it's for self-fulfillment and not for the sake of outdoing somebody.
Yeah, because then you become distracted. And I think you and I have had this conversation before, right? Where it's like, oh, that looks really cool. I'm going to go do it too because I know I can probably. And then it becomes this competition with the other person. And it just happens subconsciously if you don't become aware. And then you start becoming this distracted person where you're hopping from one place to the other. And once again, you never really get anything done.
Right.
And I see that quite a lot too, right? You have the person who jumps from the gym to they go and look at Zumba because somebody posted that they lost 30 pounds.
Right.
And then they go and do Zumba. And then they do that for a week or two, maybe a month. And then they see that someone's climbing, then they go and climb. Or they go and do this and they go and do this. And then they become frustrated because if they're doing exercise to lose weight, they're not getting the results that they want. And realistically what it is they just haven't done something consistently for long enough, right? And consistency, we know that consistency is a key, and obviously you've experienced this through the bodybuilding world, how strict it is. And what are because you've been trying to diet flexible style of eating, right? That's what you've been doing before. And I remember you becoming frustrated because the weight wasn't moving. And I remember telling you, just go straight, right?
Yeah.
Like take away all the bullshit, and let's just go strict and whole foods, and you'll see the results.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes our own knowledge is a curse
Mm.
because we try to use our knowledge to justify, you know, the refeed meal that maybe
Right.
we didn't really need.
Yeah.
What's been that experience for you now, seeing like what strict dieting does, which I don't think it's recommended for everybody, but I think to a certain extent everybody has to go through it if they want a specific result.
Oh, 100. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to get to is the if it fits your macros approach, right? Or the flexible dieting. If your goal is like just to maintain where you're at or not gain weight, right? And just live a balanced lifestyle, sure. And sure, you can lose weight on it as well to a certain extent, but nothing is going to beat the strict, just get it done attitude towards dieting because it's so adjustable. It's so clear to see what you need to do. It's impossible to mess up numbers because you're doing the same thing every single day. And it also makes it super easy to follow because you're doing the same thing. So yeah, it's obviously worked much better than my prior approach. So it's a necessary part of it, in my opinion, if you really want to maximize your results. Because again, it's so adjustable and it's just clear cut. This is what you do every single day. Execute it, and you will 100% see the progress. Versus, arguably, a more stressful approach is sure you get to eat different things every single day when it's a little bit more flexible, but then you're trying to calculate everything, and that takes up an hour of your day just figuring out, okay, what am I going to eat today? And it's an unnecessary stressor that I had put myself through prior. Also, one thing you have to account for is just your habits, right? And one thing I commonly forget is I've only been eating healthily and exercising consistently for 5 years, and I'm 24, so that's 19 years. Or wait, am I getting that math right? No, I'm tired. 17.
Wow.
Oh man,
Wow.
the prep brain. By the way,
Here, let's do it together.
let's do it together. Okay, 24 minus 5 is 19. Oh, I was right.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that I had to second guess myself says it all, though. So yeah, there's a lot of years within that span of time, nearly 4 times the amount, more math, that I have not been eating healthily or exercising. I should give myself 5 years to be 0 through 5, but from there, for a point of the majority of my life, that hasn't been the case. So when I've tried the if it fits your macros approach, particularly when it's time to gain weight, or bulk up, as people say, that's where I found myself in a lot of trouble. I think I had my most success last year. Last year, after our summer challenge, I reversed my calories back up and still kind of followed the same structure, but my breakfast would change every day and my dinner would change every day. The 3 meals of chicken and rice in between and almonds stayed the same. And I found a lot of success with that. I actually ended up losing 2 more pounds while reversing calories back from 21 to 2,800. And reverse dieting would be a great topic to talk about at another time. But for now, that's where I got up to. And then at that point, I had maintained my body weight for about 3 months, and I was really excited. I made a post about that on my Instagram because I've never been able to do that. It's always been like I'm all in on gaining weight, and then I got too fat, or I'm all in on losing weight, and oh my God, I feel horrible, and time to go back. It's always been one extreme or another. I think that's definitely my personality. I'd go all in on one or all in on the other, and so balance has been an aspect that's been hard to find, and that comes with recognizing my past. Like, I was an overweight kid my whole life, so overeating, overindulging in sweets and things of that sort, that's just kind of been my nature, and that's something I have to regulate, because then I go to the if it fits your macros approach, and I'm like, how can I fit this thing in, and it doesn't end up working out. So
yeah, if it fit your macros always works when you're bulking.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the attitude I adopt. Thank you for steering me back on track. I forgot where I was going. My point is, I developed the attitude of, I'm going to gain weight anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But it does matter a ton. And, I was looking back at old check-in photos that I used to take, and that was back when I was gaining weight but eating strictly. And there's a huge difference between how I gained weight when I ate still clean versus how I gained weight last year with if it fits your macros. Because if it fits your macros just turns into, okay, I have to get 220 grams of protein a day, hey, this fried chicken's got 50 grams of protein. Hey, this milkshake has
Yeah.
13 grams. And then you just take in all this unnecessary stuff, and yeah, it's an easy downfall.
Yeah, you talked about, only dieting or only being in the fitness space for 5 years, and this is a reminder that I like to give to a lot of the customers when they come to us, and they're a little bit frustrated, right? Because they have this goal of losing 40 pounds or 30 pounds, and it's just not happening, right? Well, what do you mean? I've been eating healthy for 2 weeks. Like, why is it not happening?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, did you play any sports in the past? No. Did you work out in the past? No. So is it the first time in the space? Yes. Okay, well, but I want to look like you. But how come you can go ahead and do all these things, right? And so I've been in the sports since I was 4.
Yeah.
So I'm 31. So let's do some math. 27 years.
Yeah. There you go.
And I've never stopped, right? I've been lifting weights since I was 15. So I've been lifting weights for 16 years, right? And so that makes a huge difference from the person that just started 2 weeks ago or the person that just started a year ago. Yeah. And there's also the difference in I was trained under coaches at a young age. Oh, yeah. So I was taught proper form at a very young age. And so therefore I was able to maximize exercise a lot more than a lot of the people that start their journey on their own, right? There's a lot of people that don't like the help. There's this mentality out there that I'm going to do it on my own. Yep. I don't need anybody's help. But in order for you to learn a skill, you must get taught by somebody else. And I think that's the simplest and the fastest way to get results is by allowing somebody else to give you the skill and to teach you the skill. And we see it in exercise. How many people do we get on a daily basis that come in and they're like, the perfect story right here, right? How long have you been training for? Oh, I've been training for 10 years and I do. And then they tell you their workout and it's like a 2-3 hour workout. Yeah. And like you could tell when a person walks in and you're like, there's no way this person knows how to do a deadlift and they've been training for 10 years. And sure enough, you make them do an RDL or you make them do a squat. And my head always goes to, how did you not injure yourself in the last 10 years, right? Because the form is just not there. The tempos are not there. They're bouncing up and down. There's just no intent to what they're doing. And it clearly makes sense why they're not getting results. And they come in for 2 weeks and all of a sudden the first day they're like, oh my God, I've never felt something like that, right? I've never felt my muscles feel like that. And that just goes to show that if you allow the person that knows what they're doing to help you, you're probably going to get better results. But you also have to be patient. And I had this conversation with Nicole the other day, and her and I have been getting ready for Wharf to Wharf, and she went from a 12:30 mile pace to yesterday we hit 9:40s. And so that's a huge win for her. Last year she ran the Wharf to Wharf. She didn't prep like she said she was going to. She cramped during it and she just had a bad experience. She also did the half marathon, didn't prep for it, just had a bad experience. And what changed for her this year is we started focusing on her and we stopped watching outside, right? Because I think that's what a lot of times happens is people start looking everywhere else and they're like, well, that person's lifting 45, so I need to be lifting 45s, or that person lost 30 pounds, so why am I not losing 30 pounds? And yesterday when she hit her 940, I told her, like, it's great. Like now we have data to track. So for Wharf to Wharf, you should hit a 105 to a 110 race. And that's success if you hit it, right? Oh, yeah. Just because somebody else hit 55 minutes doesn't mean that you need to be that person. Yeah. Now that you know that if you put in the training, you can go from 12:30 to 9:40, if you ever want to become a 5-minute runner, then you better know you know that it's going to take a lot of work, but you can't be jealous of the people that are getting 6-minute races, because I guarantee you those people have been running for
they didn't wake
quite
up
a while. And so sometimes we wish what other people have, but we don't think about the amount of work that has been put to get to that point. And that's a lot of what I see nowadays with a lot of people. And obviously social media, it's like it's everywhere, right? Everybody's posting their success. Nobody's really giving the backstory. And it just becomes this competition that makes everybody super, super impatient.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy. But yeah, that's the thing, is a lot of times, and it's something I'm guilty of as well, it's like, okay, do you really want this because you want it, or because you saw somebody else do it and you're like, oh, I can do it too, right? And if you strip that away, and this is something I've started to do, I was like, okay, let's say this person or this scenario doesn't exist. Would I still want to do it, like, just for me? Does this actually pique my interest? And that's also where you save yourself from burning out, because if you're doing it to prove a point or to just try and outdo somebody, there's no true like desire behind it. And so the moment you don't feel like outdoing this person, or you don't feel like proving that person wrong, you're like, it doesn't really matter. Your effort to get out and go run is out the window. Because like, I don't fucking care. At the end of the day, I really don't care. Right. So it's important whenever you're going to dive into something that you really look at it as, okay, if I was the only person on this planet, am I still going to do this thing? Would this still excite me? Or am I doing it just for the sake of proving this person wrong, or doing this to outdo somebody else? That's a huge thing.
Yeah. So you're in a relationship.
Yeah, an amazing one. I love Pam.
And shout out to Pam.
Shout out Pam. Delicious meal.
What's that been like for you recently? What's it been like managing work? Obviously now throwing on the bodybuilding, right? Because I remember and I told you this the other day, when I was in the bodybuilding space, and I didn't do it for long, but I've always been the type of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the T, right? And I remember after my car accident, Dre and I got into a big car accident. I lost half my teeth. She broke her arm. She elbowed me in the accident. We got T-bone, and so she shattered her humerus. I shattered my entire mandible. And so I got my mouth wired shut for 6 weeks, lost like 50 pounds on a liquid diet.
That's crazy.
And I remember, and I had, right before that, I was already bodybuilding, and I was already at like 200 pounds. And so I had gone on this bulk from like 160 to 200. And at this time I was working at Fit Republic, and we got into the car accident. I lost 50 pounds. And then I was like, right out of it, I was just so depressed for those 6 weeks that I started exercising again. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to jump on a bodybuilding show.
Right.
And in like 3 weeks, I think I gained like 18 pounds. I put on just all this weight. And
awesome.
my first show was really cool because I was, I never had to go on a diet. I was actually, we spoke about reverse dieting. I was basically in a reverse diet. I was just adding calories to my body, and it felt great. But after my show, I continued the bulk, and I got all the way up to like 215 in like a span of 8 months.
Yeah.
And from November, I think it would be a year, from November to January of the following year, because I stopped right after we got back from Oaxaca. I just went all out on bodybuilding, and it was strict. Like I would go, and I'd wake up, I'd have sessions from 5 to 10 in the morning. Then I'd go train from 11 to 1. Then I would come home and eat, and then I would sleep from 2 to 4. I always took a nap right after I trained. And then I went back from 4 to 8 p.m. and did more coaching, and then that was it. I would go to bed.
Yeah.
And that was my life for like an entire year. And obviously Dre was there with me.
Right.
But she became almost like a servant to me because she was the one helping me doing all the cooking. She was the one cleaning the sheets because having so many calories, I was eating so many calories, I would just sweat all night. I remember the sheets would be wet every single night, and it was a mess. For me, it was at the end, I started becoming like pre-diabetic just from eating like 600 grams of carbohydrates, and I was just like, all right, I'm out. My back got pretty beat up. I was dealing with sciatica. Got to a point for like the last 2 months I couldn't get out of bed, and it became a really bad experience. And yesterday I actually posted, I was like, exercise is care, not destruction. Right. And I remember at that point, for me, it was just destruction. I was, something that, and I was preaching health on people, and it was like the most unhealthy thing I've ever done. I was like, I'd be laying down and I'd be, but it was like, I lost 50 pounds. Well, no, I had gained 40 pounds. Then I lost 50 pounds. And then I gained like 60 pounds, all within like less than 2 years.
That's crazy.
Extremes, right? Extreme drops. But for Dre, obviously, it was very difficult. Like I said, she was like a servant to me, and there was no social life. How's that experience been for you lately? Especially getting her into it.
Yeah. Well, to start, like, with the basis of how I always try to not be like my dad. Like, my dad was a bodybuilder, and that was his life as well. And also, he's a personal trainer, and he was an online coach and all this stuff. So one thing that he would, like, always do is just not pay attention to me or my mom. And just on the computer all day. I have so many memories of just, like, being, like, sitting on the floor, just looking at him at the computer, like, waiting for him to turn around. And every once in a while, we'd throw a football around or something like that, right? But it was, like, he wouldn't make time for us, really. And so that's something that I'm hyper aware of now, especially with this. And I do my best to make time because, when you're doing a bodybuilding show, particularly, like, a lot of stuff just goes out the window, and you can try to manipulate it and make it still fun, but it just ends up not being as enjoyable. Like, for instance, last Sunday we went to Capitola Village, and I'm still trying to find ways to, like, go out and do things and make it as normal as possible. But I'm there with my green beans and my chicken, and we go to this brunch spot, and I'm about to pull out the meal, and the waiter's like, "Oh, you can't bring outside food," and he's like, "It has to stay in the bag." So I'm not gonna. She's already got her meal out. I'm not gonna ruin the meal and be like, "All right, well, fuck you guys, I'm out of here." And I was like, "All right." So I just sit there, and then she's just eating, and we're talking, but, like, it's an uncomfortable experience, And so, like, we've been going to the movies every Friday, so we'll go watch a movie in the movie theater, just get out of the house and go do something. But yeah, it's been different than when we first started dating, and we were just having fun, going to concerts and stuff like that. So there's definitely been a small pieces of sacrifice in terms of how we go out and enjoy our time. But I will say that she's been so awesome and supportive, and I mean, even before the show, like, always loves to make dinner, which is awesome, and I try to like reciprocate and do it as well. But I've been enjoying coming home to meals and talking about our days, and she's always offering, like, "Oh, I have extra this if you need to take a meal to work." So she's been extremely supportive, and it's made the diet a lot easier. And yeah, it's been good. I know there's some sacrifice in there, so that's been hard, and I'm really excited to, work on balance once the show is over. I don't want to, and this is something we talked about, because now we're both meal prepping, and now we're both eating. Pam's down like 10 pounds.
Right,
and she's just passively, like, doing walks with me. She always walks me, and I tell her all the time, like, I have to get to 20,000 at the end of the day. You do not have to get to 20,000 at the end of the day. Like, you can, hang out or do something that you enjoy. But she's always right there. And so, tomorrow we're probably going to go for a walk down the beach. I like to switch up the areas so we go explore new places and make it more engaging, but that's what we're doing in our free time now, And I think there's definitely a balance to be had. Like, I don't think that you and your partner have to go and do 20,000 step a day walks every weekend, and you can't ever go out and have fun, And right now that's the case with us. But yeah, a healthy medium is definitely something I want to get to, because we've already talked about how we both really enjoy being in the groove of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Just there's no implementation of like, okay, let's also go out for a drink and have a nice dinner together and go to a movie afterwards. That's not really part of it right now.
Right. So obviously having a coach has helped you structure your life a little bit more.
Yeah.
You have to modify a little bit of your relationship to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously have a supportive partner, which has made a huge difference. And, that's a big thing that I talk to a lot of the members is you need to be able to have that conversation with your partner. And it's new for a lot of people, right? Because if both of you come with bad habits or a different eating style, it's really hard to, we coach mainly women. It's really hard for the husband to all of a sudden be like, well, she joined the gym and I joined the gym too, because now I have to diet. And so a lot of them don't, quote unquote, I don't want to say they don't support them, but they don't understand at the moment that they need to support in a way where if you bring chips around the house, your wife's probably going to eat them. If you bring them ice cream, they're probably going to eat them, because that's what they know.
Yeah.
And modifying your lifestyle is necessary, and having a supportive partner is necessary in order for you to be successful.
Yeah.
You need a team, and you need a team that supports you and pushes you forward, right?
There was a study that one of my classes talked about. I have to find it. I didn't want to bring up a study and not show it, but I just have to bring it up because it was great. It was about household support and how if somebody's trying to diet in the house, but the majority of the house is not on board, that is falling through. There is no way it's going to be successful. So yeah, that's a big piece, is making sure you have your household with you, because it's not 100% certain. There's never such thing as an absolute where like nobody's going to support it and it's definitely not going to happen. You can be an exception. There's outliers, but for the most part, if you're trying to go into a diet and you're the only one in there, and there's cookies and chips in the house and people are cooking stuff in your face all the time and nobody's helping you cook your food, it's going to be extremely difficult. But when you can get the whole house behind it, like the way that can turn a whole household in terms of not just weight loss, but I mean, one thing I talk about for me with fitness is how it changed the entire trajectory of my life. Like, we didn't get into that, but also before me signing up with this coach, like college dropout, only going to college to go to college parties. I wasn't actually in college, but I was at all the college parties. I mean, like Sacramento, San Francisco, like going out of my way to go
on
party.
tour.
Yeah, I was on tour, smoking, drinking, playing video games. My biggest responsibility was picking up my little brother, Mark, from high school. That was my only thing that I had purpose in throughout the day. Was, all right, cool, I'm going to wake up at 10 a.m., I'll eat some fun pancakes, play some video games, and I'll go pick up Mark from school. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because then I started prioritizing my health, and now I have, a responsibility every single day. I have to eat this food, and I have to show up and get this thing done. And then it becomes, okay, well, now I need to show up in this aspect, and now I need to show up and get this job done. And I became very task-oriented, and that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then once I knew I wanted to get into fitness, now it was like, okay, I have the task of being smart at this, and now I need to study this. And so anyways, completely, not that you have to go into fitness once you start prioritizing your health, but it helps you find a sense of purpose.
Right. Well, it's your environment, right?
Yeah,
like I'm sure the people you were hanging around when you were partying, well, they were all about partying.
I
right?
immediately lost all
your
those
friends.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. But I developed new ones, like the guy I was posing with yesterday, Zach. Like, I started spending a lot of time in the gym, and then before I knew it, I had a group of gym friends. Back in like the golden years of Gold's Gym, there was like 7 of us that would work out together every day. Not like the hog all the machines, but like we would all be there. 2 of us would go here, 2 of us would go there. We do different things, but we were always there working out together. It's crazy.
Now you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, environments definitely matter. And when you talk about a household, well, if everybody's on the plan and everybody's doing it, it's really hard to fall off the plan, right? But if everybody's doing the opposite, then it's very easy to join them.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't get. They struggle so much at home, but you have to get everybody on board. And I always talk about the bandwagon effect, where you just need to keep doing it, because the moment you start getting results, right? If you're the first one in an environment to make the change, everybody's afraid to make the change. Nobody wants to be that person. But if you take the initiative and make the change now, and you stick with it, eventually one of those people are going to become curious.
Oh, yeah.
Then they're going to ask you how you did it.
Yep.
Then they're going to go and test the water with you, right? Because not everybody's willing to take the risk. And some of us need another person to walk the path first so that we know that it's safe.
Right.
And then we go ahead and join. Then the other people start doing the same. Then all of a sudden, you got one more, and then you have one more. And then the last few standing, well, they don't want to be by themselves, so they have no choice but to join.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in different households. I saw it when Andrea and I got together. When I first walked into her house, oh my God, it was like their way of eating was so different than what it is now. I remember going for Thanksgiving, and it was like a table of just desserts, and I was just like, where's the meat?
Yeah.
Right? It's like we have potato salad, and we have bread, and we have all these pastries, and we have sweet potato casserole with marshmallows, and it was just carbs and carbs and carbs. And I was like, how about I introduce you to some ribeye steaks? And I remember the first time that I brought them in, they probably looked at me like, who is this kid? Yeah. But the first time they tried it, they loved it. And I don't remember if it was Thanksgiving or if it was Christmas, where I was like, why don't we just make one meal, right? Everybody gets one steak, and we skip out on all that other additional stuff, so we don't have. What happens a lot is you bring all these plates, and then there's all these leftovers. Oh, yeah, and so what happens, especially on Thanksgiving, you eat turkey and you eat pastries for the next week. Oh, yeah. Right? And people wonder why they gain 5-10 pounds over the holidays. Yeah. But what we did is we got a steak, and then we made one side dish and one pastry, and that was it. And everybody got one round. That was it. And what a lot of people use food as a way to become social or a way to get together. But what a lot of people don't understand is that you love being around those people. So whether there's a lot of food or whether there's just one plate, you're still going to have a good experience. Right. If those are the people you want to be around, right? And that's what exactly happened. We had our dish, and everybody was comfortable, and nobody was passed out on the couch. Yeah. And from there on, it just continued to be like that. And the gatherings have gotten so much better because now it's all protein focused. And I tell everybody, like, if you're going to barbecue, and we love to barbecue, we love to hang out and have good time on the weekends, make it protein focused. Yeah. I don't remember if you were at our house when we were living by the beach when
no, but I
grilled
the photos.
I grilled all the different types of steaks. Yeah. And these are all coaches that quote unquote eat a lot of meat or eat a lot of food. They all tapped out with an appetizer because my appetizer was all different cuts of meats. And so by the time it got to dinner, their portions were actually a lot smaller because they were stuffed. And what people usually do is they do the opposite. They start with carbs, chips, all these type of different carbs, bread. And what actually happens is you become more hungry. Think about like Olive Garden. How many breadsticks can you eat, right? You can just keep ordering them and ordering them, and you can just keep eating them. But protein is very different. If you eat a good portion of protein, you're going to become full fairly quick, and that's going to control the amount of calories that you consume.
Yeah, big time.
Not really sure how that got there, but I got lost in this conversation. Oh, yeah. But I think we were talking about environments.
Yes,
and how
exactly
that matters.
Exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, makes a huge difference, especially if you're the grocery buyer in the household. This is a conversation I had with one of my family members because she was frustrated about gaining weight, and just the fact that she hasn't been able to lose weight. But the household is so full of like hyper palatable foods and snacks, and she's a grocery getter. So I made her agree with me that next time she goes to the grocery store, she takes me with her, and we go shopping together. Because if you are controlling what goes in the house, you are directly controlling what people consume.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't stuff the cupboards with like these, for instance, super easily digestible carbohydrates like Olive Garden breadsticks, not that, but like chips, or I don't know, insert any simple carbohydrate that breaks down in your body super fast. You're not full for more than 3 minutes, and then it's more, right? So it's easy calories that are going in. You're snacking. Snacking's and for me personally, probably the biggest downfall, right? Because it's so easy to accidentally eat an extra 500 calories of energy that you're not going to end up expending, and then that's when it gets stored to fat. But if you can fill your fridge and cupboards with 80% stuff that does not come with a nutrition label on it. So if you look at like a ribeye steak, or you look at a sweet potato, or you look at a bag of rice, there's no nutrition label because it's that singular product. It's a whole food. If you put 80% of your household groceries with that stuff, you're going to be so much better off, because a lot of times 80% of the stuff is plastic bags with stuff on it. And again, speaking from personal experience, this is something that I've been guilty of in the past. I'm not saying I haven't done it, but I am saying that I have done it and then also strayed away from it and seen the clear-cut differential between the two. Because it's very hard to overeat meat. It's very hard to overeat whole grain carbohydrates. If you try to eat 40 calories worth of Olive Garden breadsticks, I'm assuming that's like around 2 breadsticks. Probably like 9 grams of fat along with it because of all the butter. If you try to eat 40 grams of carbohydrates from a sweet potato, that's probably an entire sweet potato, maybe even a little bit more. You're going to be done once you have that one sweet potato. Yeah. And there's no excess stuff. Like, sure, the breadstick is a carb, but there's also butter and whatever else is mixed in the batter. Now it has a bunch of added fat to it. And I don't think sodium content is too much of a worry as long as you drink enough water, but there's also a ton of excess sodium in it, right? Versus that sweet potato, it's literally a pure carbohydrate, nothing added to it. Makes a huge difference in your diet.
Yeah, and those high palatable foods, right? All that processed foods, all those chips, man, they make you eat. Like, so my thing, if you walk into my house, it's 90% whole foods. Like, I would say probably even more. Like, we don't.
Yeah, I've seen your fridge.
We don't really
95%.
We don't eat really any processed food, but like my thing is hot Cheetos, right? And I tell Dre all the time. I even told her yesterday because she brought another bag. If you bring a big bag, I'm gonna destroy that bag. Mm-hmm. Like, I am going to eat that bag. Yeah. There's no doubt. You know, I don't get guilty from it, so I don't go after and be like, oh my God, I just killed it. But I'm very aware that at the moment that I start having them, and if she continues to bring them, I'll just keep eating them and eating them and eating them. And obviously, like, I can get away with this at the point in my life where I'm at because of the amount of exercise, going back to how much exercise and how healthy my diet has been for so long. But I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, if I was to continue this behavior, like, I wonder how long it would take for me to reverse all the work that I've done in the past. But I can guarantee you I can make myself fat in the next like 2 to 3 years if I was to continue this behavior, right? Because you start craving other stuff. Like the other thing that I noticed was candy. At Halloween, we weren't allowing Luca to have candy, and we allowed him to have some candy for Halloween. And I ended up having some. I'm not a big sweet tooth. I don't have a sweet tooth. Yeah. I don't like sweets. But lately, candy, oh my God, like, I guess it's just sugar that I've been craving. Yeah. If there's candy around, I'm eating it. And so we've had to monitor that and avoid bringing it into the house. But, you know, we've been using candy for runs as well to help us fuel. And it's crazy the effect that it has in your brain, because the moment you see it, it's like, I want it.
It gives you a dopamine response, which is a hormonal response. It's a reward factor to you. Sugar is literally a drug, and again, more studies that I can't wait to show. It's been shown to be more addictive than cocaine. They had rats, and there was sugar, cocaine. The rats chose the sugar from the high it gives you, and so you also look at how unregulated food is in the United States versus like Sweden or one of these demographics of a country that has a really, really healthy demographic. The shit we allow in our food is insane. And on the topic of like food labels, when you flip over a bag of hot Cheetos, flip over the nutrition label and look at what's in there. Or even the one I'm guilty of is like my energy drinks that I drink, right? Even the shit that's added in there, sure, it's 0 sugar, but the chemicals that are in those drinks that are completely illegal in other states. One super common household food that I bet so many people are unaware of or banned in other countries is Ritz crackers. Ritz crackers have, I think, cottonseed oil and something like that, which is like not even deemed safe for human consumption. Let me not quote that directly, but I know it's considered unsafe in certain studies. And they're banned in other countries, and we put it in a ton of food here. But there's so much stuff added to all these different foods, and that's the biggest thing that after this show I really want to focus on is not allowing those type of foods back into my diet, or at least only having them like out at a party or something like that, because there's literal food scientists whose unfortunately whole purpose as a job is to chemically modify these foods so that you do not stop eating them. Like you're saying, if you have the bag, you're not going to stop eating them. People have put like hours or days and years of work into manufacturing food so that it does that to you and so that it's hyper palatable. And in the United States as well, the way they organize shelves, it's like the easy snacks and stuff like that are put right in front of your face. All the healthy whole food stuff is stored aside or tucked in the one side of the store, and you have to go through all of the snacking aisles just to get to the clean stuff. It's crazy.
And then the deals that they have on it, right? Especially in these areas where money is not, at abundance. Our incomes are smaller, so we tend to go for the deals. The chip aisle has the best deals. If you go to Safeway, there's times where it's like buy one bag, get 4 free. And I'm like, how does that even make any sense? So like, all right, well, I remember one time I bought one and the lady was like, oh, you get like 3 or 4 for free. And I'm like, no, I'm good. She's like, no, but they're free. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to come home with 4 big bags of chips.
Oh, really? I would have been free. I'm not going to not take them.
And so it's tough. The food industry is tough. Food labels, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna burst some bubbles here. Majority of the foods that are 0 calories are not 0 calories.
Yeah,
there's actual calories in those foods. So almost fell. Most food labels have a 20% margin error. So that means that you could be 20% off on your food labels and you're okay. Well, if I'm trying to profit and I'm trying to make a quote unquote health product that is marketed to the health industry or the fitness industry, I'm going to take that 20% margin.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to take that 20% and try to make it 0 if I can.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of them do. And once again, if 80% of your food is processed, then you're consuming a lot of calories that you're underestimating. And that's one of the biggest things that I find with people when I start looking at their food diaries, right? It's like low carb tortillas. Oh, but it says it's only 2 grams of carbs, or it says it's only 4 grams of carbs. Right. And then you start adding up all the ingredients, and it's just they're eating a lot of food and a lot of unaccounted calories, and that's why they're not losing weight. That's why most of them are probably exercising, eating healthy, processed diets, but not losing weight. Yeah. And the moment that you take someone and you take all of that away and you convert them into a whole food diet, they lose weight. And it's like a miracle happens. And it was like it's pretty obvious.
And it's twofold. I know you've talked about it in the past, like when people say that they don't like to eat whole foods or that it seems bland. 2 pieces to that is one, it is a little bit of training your brain, because if you're used to hyperpalatable foods and stuff like that, then you are literally, kind of predisposed to having that huge dopamine kick every time you eat, and it's a reward response, right? And so you're used to experiencing this sugar high. And so, yes, there is a taper off from that because you're not going to get that from whole foods because they're natural. But the other half is just learning how to cook. And I think one common thing I've seen in the gym particularly is people like afraid of sodium or salt. Salt is such a necessary thing for all muscle actions. Like you need salt, right? And as long as you're drinking water, you don't need to worry about salt consumption for the most part. Sure, there's some medical conditions, but most side, 90% of the people just season your food, you know? And then, just getting better at cooking. If you or eat out 3 out of 4 times of the day and the only meal you make is breakfast and it's cereal, you're probably not that good at cooking, you know, but that doesn't mean you can't develop that skill or just learn how to put things in the oven or the air fryer, which is makes it super simplistic. But yeah, especially like a large demographic of people talking about getting households on board. If you're trying to get your household on board and you're doing a stricter diet, you don't need to have everybody measuring. You just need to have everybody eating the right foods. And that's one thing that you talk about a lot in school and like diet compliance is take away all the parameters that would like exhaust somebody or overwhelm somebody and just break it down into eat 3 pieces of fruit a day, eat 3 palm-sized portions of meat a day. Make sure you're eating whole grains. Like if you want pasta, if you want spaghetti and meatballs, make ground beef meatballs, make whole grain pasta, get whatever tomato sauce you want and have that. And don't worry about that. But it's not coming from Olive Garden where they're throwing olive oil or like all this excess stuff in your meal and making it extra delicious, right? It's the whole foods themselves at home and it's still delicious. It's just home cooked. And if you overdid the pasta and it sucks because of that, keep practicing, you know, and then eventually eating at home becomes very enjoyable. And you don't have to necessarily to lose 5 to 10 pounds if you're used to eating out every single day.
Super simple.
Just clean it up and literally don't measure.
Yeah.
Move around and eat whole foods and you're going to lose weight.
Well, awareness is the first thing, right? If you don't track what you're consuming or if you're not aware of what you're consuming, then it's really hard to make a change. And data allows you to make those changes very simple. Log how many times you eat out a week, right? And just take 1 week at a time. I always work on like, I don't care what you did 2 months ago. Let's just focus on this last week. If you wear a watch, all right, how many steps did you walk? Let's just take every single day. Let's add them up, and then let's divide it by 7 days. Okay. Because one of the things that you always hear is I always ask customers, what are your daily steps? Oh, it's like 10,000. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Let me see your watch.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at the data, and Monday it was 10,000. Tuesday it was 4,000. Yeah. Wednesday it was 5,000. You know, Thursday it was 10,000. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday it was like 2,000.
Oh, yeah.
And so we add it up, and then we divide it, and the average is like 5,000 steps. And I'm like, so you're a 5,000 step average person. They're only going to tell you the highest day, right? Or it's like when you ask someone, what's your diet look like? Oh, yeah, I eat pretty well. But the moment we start logging every single day, we start becoming aware of, all the unaccounted calories, right? We start realizing how little we move. We start realizing how little we exercise, or if I'm not tracking my numbers, that I'm just doing random workouts.
Yeah.
And when you start logging stuff, you're able to pull levers and you're able to just make simple adjustments. And going back to what you were saying earlier about, bodybuilding, that it's so strict and everything's accounted for, it's so easy to make changes. And so for anyone who is out there just trying to lose their first 5-10 pounds, it's very simple. Log all your food, right? Log every time you go out, how many times. If it's 5, great. Next week, go out 4. The following week, go out 3. It doesn't have to go from 5 to 0. You can go, just do one step better, right? If you only worked out once, then try to work out twice the next week. If your average steps were 5,000, just try to go 5,500. And so if you slowly start increasing the activity and you slowly start decreasing the amount of, quote unquote, bad calories or processed calories that we have, you're going to make change. Yeah. It's pretty simple. Yeah. It's not that difficult, but you have to be aware and you have to track the data so that you're not lying to yourself, because a lot of people just lie to themselves. They justify their actions with, well, I am doing better, right? And I was talking about the level of resistance, the line of resistance, where a lot of people say, well, I am doing better. And yes, you are doing better, but if you're not getting the result that you need, then you probably need to do a little more. And so in comparison to what you did last week, yes, you are probably doing better and you might have gotten some results, but if it's not moving anymore, then you probably need to change something else. You need to make some adjustment. And the only way you know how to make that adjustment is by having data.
Yeah.
You need data.
Yeah. And that's one thing to kind of shed light on is the first 5 to 10 pounds, like we were saying, super easy. Just clean up your habits. Once you've cleaned up your habits, one thing that I think people don't realize or kind of are blind to sometimes is that weight loss is not easy. It is in the beginning. Once your body has adapted, it is not easy because we are adapting homeostasis machines. Like the reason we have eyebrows is to keep the sweat out of our eyes when you're running away from a predator. Like that, the very core of what it was meant to do. The reason we sweat is to release heat. It also makes you less grippable if somebody was trying to grab you like a predator, right? Like there's all these adaptations that your body has made from the beginning of time to now. And weight loss prehistorically is a traumatic experience. It means you're not eating enough. You're not getting enough food. So what does the body want to do? Adapt, adjust the metabolism. Cool, I'm not going to lose weight anymore because even though we know we're not going to die, even though we know there's a Togo's down the street that I can go eat 1,200 calories in 5 minutes, central nervous system doesn't know that. Central nervous system thinks, oh my God, I'm losing weight. I'm going to die. I need to change something. So we need to be proactive and acknowledge that and make the necessary adjustments. But on top of that, it's like that's not going to come easy. Your body will start to fight you and manipulate hormones like I was talking about yesterday. Ghrelin, your hunger hormone, is going to go up. Why? Brain thinks eat, right? If we know we want to continue to lose weight, then conscious brain thinks don't eat and continue eating the proper food. But, just going into it aware that at some point it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy the whole time, and change is difficult. And if you're going to fight your body on something it biologically doesn't want to do, it's probably not always going to be the easiest thing to do. So just being aware that there's going to be days where you feel tired. There's going to be, definitely with weight loss, you're going to feel hungry at some point, right? And just making comfort with that because it's a necessary evil to a certain degree. But again, a majority of the time, it's your first time exercising. It's your first time going into weight loss. Oftentimes people are under eating and you're going to have to eat more. But in the grand scheme of things, weight loss is not easy. Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy. And, another thing, like you were saying, adaptation is people need to play the long game. Because and I always talk about this being very transactional, right? Like I ate the food and I get on the scale and I didn't lose the weight and I'm upset. Like I made this habit change and I didn't get the result that I wanted and I throw a fit because of it. And then all of a sudden that fit turns into, well, I'm just going to go back to my old lifestyle, right? You just throw it all away. And what people need to understand is that the goal should always be to make this lifestyle as sustainable as possible so that I can do it for as long as possible. And realize that if I come from bad habits, at some point I'm going to have to make that switch where from now on it's going to be good habits, right? I'm going to exercise and not look at exercise as I want to lose weight, but exercise because you want to take care of your body, right? Oh, yeah. And exercise, we talked about this the other day, right? It's not just lifting weights. No. Exercise comes in many different forms. It comes in the form of running. It comes in the form of hiking. It comes in the form of walking. It comes in the form of sports. Yeah. And we had this conversation that now that we're teaching the youth, and a big thing that I try to remind my coaches is let's make exercise fun. Because you were the one having this conversation the other day about how kids are now seeing exercise, right? You asked a simple question like, how do you view exercise? And what were some of the answers you got?
Yeah, so my professor was talking about how, it's very problematic, and a lot of us are taught to hate exercise from a young age because we have PE. And what is PE? PE is the one physically adapted student outshining everybody else, and now you feel like you're not good enough. And then it's running a mile and feeling like you want to throw up. and then it's just doing push-ups and crunches. And so when I asked this group of kids who were part of a program coming in to work out, they didn't necessarily want to come to the gym. It was part of the program, right? So it was perfect group to ask. When you hear the word workout or you hear the word exercise, what do you think of? And everybody went to tired, in pain, throwing up. I heard no positive remark back. And it was crazy because I just heard this in class, and 2 weeks later I go apply it, and man, is it true. And so that's where we come in and educate, right? Because exercise is not weight training. Weight training is weight training. Exercise is an umbrella. And so kayaking, if that's fun for you, you like doing, being out in the ocean, that's exercise. You're burning a ton of calories moving your body like that. Skateboarding is exercise, right? Anything realistically that is moving your body and elevating your heart rate and getting your muscles to fire up and engage is exercise. And so there's dancing is exercise. There, you don't even need an excess thing. Just move your body around. Running, like you said, so there is an outlet for everybody, and there will 100% be some way that you can move your body and engage your muscles that will be enjoyable to you. And it's up to you to find that and then make that a part of your lifestyle. Because, the way our skeletal system and our muscles and our tendons are built, we're made for movement. And, now everybody's job is at a desk, or somewhere seated. And so a lot of people don't do what they were primarily physically built to do, right? We have this in-depth muscular system for a reason, as opposed to more sedentary things like what's something that doesn't move that's alive? I don't know, something in the ocean, algae, right? They're stuck to a rock, or whatever that thing is that's stuck to a rock. It's not supposed to move. We have this huge skeleton and muscle tissue that's meant to move around. And so now that we're so cooped up in buildings all the time, there's a lot of stress, anxiety, depression that builds from that. And at its core, a lot of people just don't move. And it's like, you got to get back to that in whatever way you find enjoyment from that. So, yeah.
Yeah, but.
So the kids.
Yeah, the kids.
This is a great podcast.
They got. But, you do need to weight train. I think it's necessary now. Once again, I don't think it's something that you have to do all the time. I don't think it's something that you have to do every single day. I think 2 to 3 times a week. Yes, if you are trying to get a specific result, then yes, there's probably going to be seasons, right? And those seasons might be 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, right? Like I went through a season of bodybuilding where I wanted to put on all this muscle, and I did. Yeah. And after that, after I did the bodybuilding and I put on all this muscle, I actually spent the next 3 years getting rid of it because I wasn't happy with it. But because I built that foundation though, now like I can go 2-3 months without working out or without weight training, and I can go and play sports and come back and be fine. Right. And my weight hasn't changed. The amount of muscle mass that I've had over the last 2-3 years hasn't really changed much. I've shrunk quite a bit, but I feel good. I can still get under a bar, and I can still squat. I can still get under a bar and still bench, and those skills never leave anymore, right? And so now I can go ahead and like, for example, I'm doing running right now. So now my training is going to supplement, or is going to help support the type of running that I do. When I was playing soccer, I was using exercise, or I was using weight training to help me become more explosive and be able to jump and be able to move and become more agile, right? So don't get caught into this bodybuilding world or bodybuilding style training world, because the more healthier you become, for those people that haven't really been able to move much, and as you start dropping those pounds and you start becoming more mobile, I highly suggest that you start exploring sports, different activities, because that is the goal, right? When I usually listen to people talk about why they want to lose weight, well, I want to be healthier, but I also want to be able to do things that I've never been able to do before, or I haven't done in a while, or run around with my kids. And once again, you just don't turn on a switch. You have to actually try and go out of your comfort zone and go do other type of activities. And I think that's where a lot of the fun comes, and that's where you stop forgetting about just losing weight, and you really start enjoying your body, which
Yeah.
the bodies are amazing.
This is the piece that I was forgetting to mention that you totally just reminded me. Thank you. With weight training, it's the mirror image, the muscles or whatever you want to look at. That is such a minute part of what weight training actually does for you. And like, if you look at it, if you don't care about how you look and anything of that sort, you should still resistance training, because from a health preventative measure, it is so important. And when you get older and we have these instances of, one of the leading causes of death for an elderly person is falling. Mm-hmm. And that's from two things. That's from sarcopenia, which is when your body starts to deteriorate its muscle tissue, which weight training directly goes against, right? So if you are an elderly person, even 60, 75 plus, it is recommended that you resistance train, because you're directly going against the body's response of older age of eating its own muscle tissue. And so a lot of times when people fall over, it's a loss of balance from what? A loss of strength. And so when you see an old person really struggle to get out of a chair, their muscles are a lot smaller and weaker at this point. So it's hard to push their own body weight up and stand up. And when you see people who are 80 years old moving around like they're 40, it's from years and years and years of resistance training and continuous lifting that has helped them still live such a quality life at such a old age. And that's just the muscular standpoint. In terms of bones, that's another reason why elderly people, have a trouble with falling. First part is the weakness in muscles. Second part is the fragility of their bones and anything crushing, right? You have osteoclasts and osteoblasts, and these things are responsible for building new bone marrow and breaking down old bone marrow. And so when you're young and you're growing, the bone marrow grows more than it gets eaten away, right? And so you have new cell growth, old cells diminish. As you age, the rate of that happening kind of levels out, and then it goes the opposite direction. And that's where people see bone brittleness, right? You start to eat away more bone tissue than you're growing. And again, resistance training influences new bone growth and also solidifies hard bones that won't deteriorate. And that's where you see, again, healthily moving older people who have a much quality life. The one thing I'm super afraid of is being 70 and I can't move around, I've always said this second I can't move and I'm bound to something, I don't want to be here anymore. So there's plenty of people who resistance train for their whole lives and they're 90 moving around. And also just you're talking about playing with your kids and stuff like that. Well, what if now you can play with your grandkids because you're still mobile, And so if you don't care about how you look or you don't, which is great, that's fine. Still look at it from a point of health prevention. And that's just me talking about muscle and bones. That's not me talking about your heart and cardiovascular health. And where running would also pair with weight training, or just anything to elevate your heart rate in terms of heart attack being one of the leading killers, right? Obesity being one of the leading killers. All these things that are the leading causes of death are all prevented by resistance training and just moving your body more.
Right. And to add to that is you spoke about grandkids. You are setting the example for future generations too, right? I know a lot of the people that we deal with, their parents never went to the gym. My parents never went to the gym. I never saw my parents go to the gym. I never saw my parents play. My dad plays soccer, which is why I got into it, and that's where I picked it up from, right? But if you can continue to do activities, play sports, you are going to pass it on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And I always say this because now that I have Luca, I'm experiencing what's happening, right? He only knows what I show him, right? Everybody's like, well, how come he can jump and squat and do all these things? He's only 2 years old. Well, because that's all he sees, right? I bring him in the gym and I let him jump around. And, a lot of people are afraid that kids are going to hurt themselves, but you actually want that impact. You want them to jump around. And you were the one that was telling me this from what you learned in one of your classes, right? And resistance training doesn't mean that they need to lift weights.
Right. Resistance is anything. Yeah. When you're swimming, resistance is the water you're pushing against. Yeah. Right. And for kids, their central nervous systems and their coordination is not fully developed, obviously. So Luca's not going to be able to grab 2 dumbbells and hang clean and press, right? So he can't load his bones in that way, but jumping off of a box and loading his bones with all the force of his body weight is solidifying his bones and making them denser as a young child, which is going to give him much healthier bones in older age already.
Right.
You know, so it definitely predisposes or sets up your kids for success through just having them. It's called rough and tumble play.
Yeah.
Very important from A, like a physical standpoint, but B, they were talking about like a social standpoint and socialization of children. That type of bumping around and moving and jumping and falling and stuff like that is very beneficial and necessary. Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have to end it.
Yeah, this is
Here.
an hour and a half.
It's been an hour and a half. When is your competition?
August 26th,
Where's it at?
Santa Cruz Civic Auditorium.
All right. So make sure you get your tickets. We're going to go watch Jordan and Gio get in underwear and get on a stage.
Board shorts.
Board shorts?
Yeah, I ordered
You're
mine
not going to
today.
do the classic?
I don't know.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I think you should just give it a try.
I just want to see me in underwear.
Yeah. So I can post it in the gym.
Yeah.
Let's get a big picture. And I think all your members would like to see you in underwear too.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that was it. I'm going to continue to bring Jordan on so he can drop some science bombs on you.
Yeah, next time I'll
loves the knowledge.
write a little list on here so
Yeah.
we don't. I think both of us
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
I like it sometimes when it goes everywhere, but I think if we're going to go and talk about more specific topics, then we can go ahead and make a list.
Yeah, let's do it.
That would work.
Hell yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope you all enjoyed it.